Hey, LaShawn.
Hey, Mike.
How you doing?
I am good. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, to get us started today, we have Mica Fidler coming today.
Yeah.
And she's going to do some conversation around like wilderness expeditions and
Right.
how that lives out in classroom spaces. So I think to me, the natural question for you is, so like, what is your feeling about nature and the woods and being out there? Are you like a nature person?
That's such a funny question. Do you think I'm a nature person?
I think.
Like, what would you say?
I know you like to go for a hike.
Uh-huh.
So, but my instinct is no.
I am actually a nature person. I would prefer to be outside than inside. I love the woods. I'm not a camper. I am a glamper, not a camper.
Yeah, I don't understand camping.
But I love being outside, and hiking is one of actually my favorite things to do.
Excellent. So today will like really resonate for you.
It really will. And my first outdoor experience was in middle school. So I'm excited to like hear, from Mica a bit. I would say that you
What do you think?
are probably not an outdoor person.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I actually like a good hike.
Okay.
I appreciate a tree.
Okay. A tree.
A good view. My dad was a cab driver from New York City and a salesman. So like this idea of like camping or being out in nature, it feels like anti-evolutionary to me. Like we've spent millions of years trying not to sleep in the middle of the woods.
And then people
people do it by choice.
Voluntarily.
But like why?
Yeah.
And I remember I was a Boy Scout. Did you know that?
Mike, I would have never guessed that you were a Boy Scout.
Yes. Well, I was a Cub Scout and a Weebelo.
Okay.
And then it was the Boy Scouts, and my dad and I went on a camping trip together. And then after that, I was no longer a Boy Scout.
Okay. So you don't even really have like the survival skills or any of those kinds of things?
Nope. We came home early.
Okay. Well, that tracks.
So anyway, excited to have Mica here today.
Yeah. Welcome to the Flipped Podcast.
Or Flip Ed.
However you hear it, this is a place for joy and dreaming of education.
In each episode, you will hear from educators with an idea, a vision, a revolutionary thought that could flip a switch and change schools for our changed world.
I'm LaShawn.
I'm Mike.
Welcome to Flipped.
Welcome to Flip Ed. Mica Fidler is an evangelist of progressive education because she experienced the power of curious, joyful, authentic learning as a student, teacher, and instructional leader. After studying literary translation at Brown University, she began her career with a Fulbright grant in South Africa. Since then, she spent a decade teaching and coaching in expeditionary learning schools, striving to bring the principles of outdoor learning into public classrooms in New York City and Baltimore. Mica now serves as the Director of Partnerships and Volunteer Recruitment at Thread, a community impact organization that leverages the power of relationships to support Baltimore City students through graduation and beyond. Mica serves on the board at the Park School of Baltimore. She is a third-generation Baltimorean and an avid hiker, polyglot, and parent to 2 toddlers. Hi, Mica.
Hi.
Welcome.
2 toddlers. Keeps you busy?
Oh, yeah. I feel my teaching muscles in action every single day with them alone.
Do you use them?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Absolutely. I think my time in the classroom was just training to be a parent to toddlers patiently and resiliently.
I could never translate my teaching into parenting. Somehow those were like 2 completely like different minds. I don't know. So I'm impressed.
And is your mommy voice and teacher voice, are they the same?
Oh, yeah. It clicks on. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we're so glad you're here.
Yeah.
I am so happy to be here.
Cool. All right. So of all the things you could have done in the world, a horticulturist, accountant, brain surgeon, you chose to be an educator. Can you tell us a little bit about the why and how you got there?
Yeah. I went to high school at the Park School, and I had the incredible experience of being able to build a nest in the woods as my final English project, test the acidity of low acid orange juice with my own designed experiment using natural pH indicators like rose petals, and perform Shakespeare during the school day. And I wanted every kid to have the opportunity to have incredible student-centered experiences like that. And that became really clear to me in high school, that was a major equity issue in our city, that some people had these really robust learning experiences and not everyone did. And so I started my career wanting to expand access to progressive, really enlivening learning spaces.
I have two questions. You went to Brown for literary translation. So when you left Park, teaching was not necessarily the thing you thought, or did it just, how did that?
English teaching was always on the radar. So I
Okay.
studied comparative literature and I was always interested in languages. I didn't know if I wanted to teach domestically right away. So that's how I ended up in South Africa also. So I also was always dancing around theater, both inside the classroom and outside. So that also was related to my love of literature and how I ended up teaching 7th and 10th grade English for a while.
And then the second question I have is, you built a nest as your final project? Like, was it a very big nest, or was it a nest for who? What was this nest?
It was a human-sized nest.
Wow.
And it was a final for an English class. There was a poem related to it. It was an installation in the woods. Symbolizing my departure from childhood. Anyway.
Wow.
So it is true. They say there is a bit of that kind of outside the box thinking at Park, but also I've been able to sort of take projects like that to urban spaces, public, private, charter, all over the world.
And that project stuck with you. Like, it's a part of your story.
It did. Yeah.
Wow.
I might want to see a photo of the nest at some point.
I'll have to dig one up. It was a while ago, but to your point, I think learning should stick with you, right? The projects and what I made, that's really what leads me, I guess, into the flip too, is what I made and what my students have made has stuck with me the most after, all these years in schools.
Yeah. So, our show is all about like this idea behind, like, if you could just flip one thing, and we know like one thing isn't going to solve all the problems that exist within the educational system. But like, from your lens, if you could take one thing and flip it and it be the thing that leads to like meaningful and engaging learning experiences for kids, we're asking folks like, what is that? So I'm excited to hear what is your flip?
So if I could change one thing, I would make every classroom feel like a wilderness expedition, feel like that for students, for teachers as well. And that's what I would change. I would make it feel like an outdoor expedition, a long hike in the woods, a canoe trip, any outdoor wilderness expedition.
What can you say a little more about like what that means to make a classroom feel like that?
Yeah. So, and this is separate from, I do think I'm an evangelist of outdoor education. So I do think people should go for actual wilderness expeditions. And I've seen schools, again, across the spectrum prioritize that and reap the benefits of it. But I think bringing that feeling into the classroom is something that EL schools, expeditionary learning schools, Outward Bound has sought to do now for several decades. And there are probably 4 different pillars of what that feels like. The first, I think the most obvious is the kinesthetic element, moving and exposure to nature, when designed into the classroom, is really how most adolescents are prepared to learn. And obviously it proves Jonathan Haidt's theories about a play-based childhood and how much we need to be moving to learn in that age and to contradict the sort of screen-based childhood. Then I think the second big element of what it feels like in the wilderness is authenticity of challenge. The challenge is not set before you by the State Board of Education. It's not set before you by the authority vested in your teacher. It's presented by the mountain and the weather and the elements. And that sort of, it's so authentic. And so authenticity is really central. I think the biggest and the most undercounted element of wilderness education and wilderness experiences, I should say, is your sense of progress monitoring is completely transparent. So the trail blazes, often when I go with kids into the woods, they spot the blazes sooner than you do. And I think that's the thing that's most often missing from a public school classroom or any classroom is the kids' ownership of the waypoints, them being wayfinders along their journey. And so that I think is actually the biggest element that if that was flipped, we'd see agency and ownership for kids in a way that we don't often see in the classroom.
When we're thinking about something like this for K-12 students, what are kinders walking away with? What are fourth graders walking away with? What are ninth graders walking away with?
It's a great question. I would say when an administrator walks into that classroom, for example, often administrators are saying, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
And if they were saying the classic question that you ask any other hiker when you're on a trail, you encounter another human, what you say is, "Where are you coming from and where are you headed?" And so I think if kids are able to internalize the steps on the journey, first of all, it builds engagement because they're working towards something real. When you are on a hike, you can't not get to the destination.
Yeah.
You can't. There's no other way to get out. You got to go through it. And when I was coaching teachers for years, I would always be struggling with the pacing, right, of the scope and sequence. And teachers would often get to the end of the term and have not gotten to the end of the content. And you have to wrestle constantly with your pace. In the outdoors, you have to get to the end result. So I think I've seen the best, your question was about students, and I'll get there, but I've seen the best outcomes when teachers are prioritizing constantly revising their end result, the authentic performance or essay or task or whatever it is for an authentic audience at the end. And updating their pacing to make sure you always get there. And so I think kids can come away with pride because they've gotten there. Yeah. That's the big thing. And you can experience pride in your work in kindergarten, middle school, all the way through, as long as you've made it to the finish line.
So the idea of like approximating like a wilderness expedition or experience with those pillars that you mentioned is one thing. Can we go a little bit into actually getting out into nature a little bit? So you still have those things that are approximated in the classroom, but what's different about actually getting kids into the wilderness or on a hike or outside, whatever you have access to, that brings even more than just the approximations in the classroom space?
Yeah.
Like, what's the power of having kids out in nature?
Yeah, and actually I think that there was a huge study by Casey and the YMCA that was just released like 2 months ago on this. Skills for thriving. That's how they defined what kids are able to retain and develop in the wilderness. And they dug down. They studied camps. They studied backcountry expeditions. They studied urban horticultural experiences, anything that sort of was a learning experience in the outdoors. And the elements that they zeroed in on were authentic exploration, right? The uncontained, curiosity-driven exploration, reflection, which I thought was actually a really key element because we all seek to foster reflection in our classrooms, but I think it was more consistent and more aligned to the learning experience in all these outdoor learning experiences. And yeah, they said that exploration, the reflection, builds these skills for thriving. And I guess the last thing that I've seen that I didn't get to before, a sort of a fourth pillar, is bridging and bonding. So just like you would on a sports team or in a theater production, you develop a kinship across lines of difference when you are in the wilderness with folks, because hierarchy is often removed, authority is removed, and you have bidirectionality, which is something at Thread, where I work now, is something we are big believers in. You have to rely on one another. And that's something teachers can bring into the classroom like you would have on any sort of team or performance ensemble.
Did you come by this connection to wilderness, nature, approximating that in the classroom honestly, like, did you grow up in the woods? Were you a wood? I mean, you built a nest in high school, so I'm guessing it sort of came to you, you know.
I've loved hiking and the woods always. My husband and I have done multi-day hiking trips all over the world. He made me walk 80 miles before he proposed.
Wow.
But I will say...
Wait, I have questions. No, go ahead. Keep going.
And you said yes.
I said yes. Okay. And then I told everyone
you were
at every
exhausted.
campsite. I know. I was delirious and at altitude. But honestly, it came to me through theater. And so that's how I know and feel so deeply that it's not about the actual woods, although the sublime experience you feel in the woods, I do think is unparalleled. But it came to me through theater because in high school, I took a class where the administration had blocked the schedule so that we, in the middle of the day, had 90 minutes every day to rehearse a play. So it wasn't foisted to after school. It was our English and our theater class during the school day. And actually the play was cast before the school year began. And we spent all year working towards this performance. And we had to go left, right, zig and zag through the Elizabethan era history, through the context of Shakespeare's England, through all the plays surrounding the play we were performing, but with this role that we were preparing for the entire time. So the sense of journey, destination, ensemble was ever present. And that brought me to this idea of being a wayfinder of your own academic journey and the teacher being alongside you as intellectually curious, part of the journey, sort of in an equitable, less hierarchical way. So that's where it launched for me. And then I will say I came of age as a teacher and a school administrator through expeditionary learning and outward bound schools. So that's where I came to see the nuances of how you bring those principles, the design principles of Outward Bound, into the classroom.
That's incredible. It makes me wonder for teachers who are interested in just starting, just getting to a place where they can get their kids immersed in some outdoor experiences, but may not be in places where the structure supports it. Like what is a starting point for them?
Yeah. So I think collaborative planning on the guiding question and the learning targets for each unit are essential. Because when I reflect on how I prepare for a big wilderness trip, you lay out your map and plan your route and plan your materials, your hydration, where you're going to stop, where you might go awry. That type of planning is not traditional unit planning. Yeah. And you're not as wedded to what you do day to day, but week by week, you are insistent on where you must get to, because otherwise you won't make it, right? The elements need to be prepared for. So I think how you plan with the end in mind, how you work your way towards very wordsmithed, well-crafted learning targets, I think is key. Yeah. The other thing is planning with your grade team. The best administrators I've ever had have made space for that collaborative planning time, because it's really hard for an 11-year-old to meaningfully walk towards 5 places at once. Right. And if you are combining an end product across multiple classes, it says to the kid, this is what matters. We're all in on this one journey together.
And what are some intentional things that teachers can do to prepare their kids, or to build the muscle within their kids to be able to be fully present for an experience like this?
The best school environment I was ever in had coaching on how to use protocols effectively, and how to use your planning and preparation to put things in kids' hands, to put manipulatives and materials in kids' hands, to do the groupings so intentionally in advance. Again, just like you would for an expedition, you don't just say we're going to walk 10 miles, but you ration out your food, and it appears often exactly when you need it. There's a concept of trail magic. Yeah. So when you get to a juncture and you weren't sure which way to go and someone has left a clue or an extra bag of trail mix. These miracles appear on the trail, and facilitation, expert facilitation, should feel like that. It should feel like the resource you needed just appears at the right time. But really, that's the planning that teachers are doing, is preparing for where there's going to be a need, when someone's going to run dry, when someone's going to need more energy or more instruction or clarity. So preparing to put those resources in kids' hands. Often I'll have, as a teacher, I would have mystery folders on the table that kids can go to for resources, and they would forget they're there until they were really struggling or grappling together, and you would cue them. Maybe there's something in the mystery folder that could help you at this waypoint.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions. One is the scaffolded idea around this is a wilderness expedition. Like you're a hiker, you're a nature person, but there might be some people in this room who are not that.
Like you?
Yes.
Oh,
so
interesting.
how do you get people to the same concept or the framing if they don't have like when you said there are like blazes on trees, I don't know what you're talking about, or I've never experienced trail magic. I thought that anyway. So so how do you help people come to that place who may not have that schema for wilderness expeditions?
I do encourage schools to take faculty to places like Echo Hill or Outward Bound if it's ever possible, as much as it stretches people's comfort zone. I will say there's nothing like it. Mm-hmm. But like I said about theater, I think any team experience can be aligned to these pillars, right? What I'm really talking about is going on a journey with a group of people where the destination is crystal clear to everyone from the jump. The route may change. There are going to be challenges along the way, but the destination, the learning target is clear, and everyone has set off together with the same intention in mind. I think that's really the essential component, and that's why an ensemble theater cast feels the same way about the performance, and that's why a sports team feels the same way about the championship. It's the end goal being attainable, clear, and for all of us. That's the driving force.
I'm curious about there's the level of disposition and value that teachers also have to approach this with, right? They're, you know what I mean? They are just as much a part of creating or curating the experience for students as, other important factors. I wonder, have you encountered any teachers that have been reluctant to? How did you navigate?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I think it's my flip is it's not something people want to pick up and run with all the time. Yeah. Even down to, the special educator I worked with at my school in New York, she and I, every single week, we had every day of the unit planned out, what we were going to do with each section, often at different pace with each section. And we would update that every week, including moving every lesson along, right? Deciding what was going to happen every day and updating it. And when I, as a coach, said that to teachers, that's the level of meticulousness for the journey mapping that will really lead you to end on time and effectively, they were like, you're crazy. I'm going to have to decide every week what I'm doing every day. But I always knew where I was on the journey. I knew what I could cut. I knew what I couldn't cut. Yeah. I knew where kids were. And so, having a co-teacher to hold you accountable to, I can't know where we're going next week unless I know where we're headed in the end. It's a pushback.
I do wonder, and you mentioned it when we were talking earlier, I wonder, going to your question, LaShawn, if a teacher has never experienced it, then it's harder to replicate or approximate, right? So, I just wonder how that looks for a school or a group that wants to take this on, whether that's Outward Bound or putting on a theater production or, right? We're doing some work around the concept of deeper learning, and you can only do deeper learning if you've experienced it yourself, right? And so the training that we're trying to create around it is around people actually experiencing deeper learning, because then you have a schema to be like, oh, that's what it feels like. That's what it looks like. That's what it sounds like. So then I can build towards that. Yeah. But if you don't have it, it's hard to imagine it.
And I think that's I mean, that's the work that I nerd out about did as an instructional guide, setting the rudder for the school of what great learning feels like. I mean, I think you can backwards map from pride. Your question about what do kids get out of it.
Yeah.
If you backwards map from the proudest moments, either as a student or an educator, I think you're going to find that journey element, the clarity for any teacher.
Yeah.
But I also, EL does site seminars for that reason, where you can go experience a slice or a day in the life of an expedition. And they have a whole models of excellence where you can look at the student work and ask the questions of what steps led to that excellence, what took you to the mountaintop, as they say.
On a slightly separate note, how do you feel about like the standalone 2-day Outward Bound experience or the 2-day Echo Hill experience that kids do once every 2 or 3 years? Of course, you mentioned that the kids are coming back and there's some sense of power, but like, do you feel like that is is that worth it enough to do, a 2-day thing? Or does it need to be something that is actually much more like rhythmic and experienced over time in order to have real roots in a person's development?
I think 2 days, I think 1 day, depending on how it goes, can be amplified in a child's memory in a way that's indelible, depending on the nature of the experience. I think the school's job, if you're bringing that into curriculum, is how you prepare for it and then how you reflect on it afterwards.
Yes.
At the school I worked at in New York, Mel's, they timed the wilderness expedition at the end of 6th grade, and kids were in their advisories or their crews for 6th, 7th, and 8th. So I thought that choice, schools, when they're choosing to do this and invest all the resources that these types of trips entail, are always thinking about timing. And I felt that we had so many dividends that we reaped from the timing of that trip, because they had a year to understand our school's vocabulary, our school's values, but then they spent 2 more years with the people they were on that trip with as classmates, as advisory peers. So the growing had legs beyond that moment. And most of them ended up writing about it in 7th or 8th grade. We used the terminology from it. So it's how you leverage the personal growth and the consistency. Again, one trip is not going to be as life-changing as your entire K through 12 experience, centering you with agency in your own journey.
Yeah. Mica, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So LaShawn, what's your takeaway?
I think I've been just like circling this idea in my mind around the authentic challenge piece that she talked about, and how these experiences present this real authentic challenge to kids, being in a place where finishing is the only option. I think if I think back to the moments as a teacher where I'm trying to, build muscle for perseverance in my kids and like encouraging them to push through when things get hard, like that looks very different in a classroom setting than it does in the middle of the wilderness, when you can either go forward or you can go backwards, but you have to move. And I think that kids can get something out of that. I think that that's a powerful example powerful example of just the way life presents challenges, and like you in various moments have to push through, and
you can make it,
and when you get to the end, like there's a sense of pride that she mentioned, and there's all these feelings of accomplishment that we hope when we're curating lessons in our classrooms that the kids get to in the end, but it always doesn't always land in that way. So I think that's a really powerful and unique way to push kids out of places of comfort and to move them towards like finishing.
And then I think for me, going off of what you said, I think this sense of like, how do we create these experiences for kids where they feel this genuine pride and accomplishment at the end? Like, not pride and accomplishment of I got an A.
Yeah.
But like we've actually produced this thing together, or we've overcome this challenge together.
Yes.
It's such a deeper sort of collective sense of connecting sense of pride.
Yeah.
That's so different than like I'm just a good student.
Yeah.
Or right. And so it just made me think about, in our own practice here, how can we incorporate even more opportunities, spaces, places, whether it's finishing a hike or creating that play together and performing it,
right.
or whatever, building a nest together, whatever that
right.
is, so that sense of authentic pride happens more often.
Yeah, that level of accomplishment, it lends itself to that intrinsic motivation that we're trying to get kids to feel on a day-to-day basis.
And then the other thing made me think about is what do you think you, Justin, and I can go do Outward Bound together? The three of us in the woods. I'm going to overcome my.
I think that I would rather not, but it was a good thought.
But think of the pride and accomplishment we would have together.
Yeah, I hold so much like positive space for outdoors. I don't want to like muddle that with you. So I think it's cool, but no. Yeah, I'll pass.
It's very sweet.
Yeah.